Welcome. Today's Deskside with Gerard Braud is our guest today. Gerard is founder of Braud Communications and author of Don't Talk to the Media. Gerard, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good today, just trying to avoid crises where possible.
Well, what are you working on today since we call this Deskside with? What's on your tabletop?
You know, the old saying, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. The interesting thing about crisis communications is the best studies are the ones you can ever talk about, because those are the ones where you keep the crisis from happening. So I've got an international client today that we're trying to keep their crisis from ever going public, and so far, so good.
And so you're not going to help it go public. All right. I hear you loud and clear. Fair enough. Let's move on a little bit and talk about what's your sense of some of the biggest PR disasters, the biggest communications crises of 2010?
Well, being a guy who lives down here in New Orleans, obviously the BP crisis has been near and dear to me, both as a professional as well as geographically. And I think that one's really interesting this year because they tried to use online tools in an unprecedented way. However, a lot of that strikes me as old school techniques used with new tools, and man, a lot of that fell flat on its face, in my opinion. So I definitely want to talk about that when we get into doing our next teleseminar. The Toyota crisis, on the other hand, big, ugly crisis, huge financial impact, but their use of the shiny new tools like social media has been very impressive in how they have rebounded and reconnected with their customer base. And then the third case study that I see way at the top is the Tiger Woods case study, because here is a celebrity who had a major crisis, who did that very traditional say nothing, hide from the media, and it's because of how he started to hide that suspicion was raised about all the things that eventually became public. And when you're a celebrity, the advantage you have as a celebrity over a corporation is you have fans. Fans being short for fanatics. And those people follow you on social media. And his failure to effectively use social media in a crisis was a monumental failure, in my opinion. But those are the top three crises that I see for 2010.
Gerard, quick FYI, you're up close and personal here. Your mic has a little bit of feedback, so you can move it back just a millimeter or two. And we'll stick on the Tiger thing for just a second. I saw a lot of stories this last week, and even some on Monday, about Tiger is finally beginning to use Twitter, but it's sort of unauthentic tweets. Your thoughts on that and how to be engaged via social media or tools like Twitter in an authentic way when you're facing a crisis?
Well, one of the things that I always look at is I don't see that there are rules to be used across the board that everybody should behave the same way. Celebrities get a pass that corporate America or corporate world doesn't get. If you want to see good use of social media, follow Kim Kardashian. She is brilliant at how she uses social media and how her fans follow her. And that's the type of tweeting that a guy like Tiger Woods needs to do. But as we've seen in corporations, it's wrong to hire someone to do all of your tweeting for you. It needs to be authentic.
Absolutely. And the Kardashian family is pretty responsive to their publics and conversations about the brand that they've spent so long building. For example, yesterday in the news, I think it was yesterday, they pulled the Kardashians, the three of them, off of the credit card that was branded Kardashian with the Kardashian family. So they're pretty responsive. I get their social media savvy. I want to just circle back. You said that some of the top three crises you saw of the year were BP oil spill, the response, Toyota's recall, and Tiger Woods, let's call it marital mess. That jives exactly with the top 10 list of top PR disasters of the year based on a survey that CommPro and Cantor released, or we conducted about 2 weeks ago, and we're going to announce the results, the rest of the results later on this week. But I want to round out that list. It was BP, Toyota, Tiger Woods. Number 4 was Action for Children. It was an autism ad campaign backlash. Then we all know about this one. Number 5 was Apple's AntennaGate. Then number 6 was HPO's CEO scandal. Then EasyJet's volcanic ash cloud saga. the Nestle's palm oil crisis, and the last two on that 10 were Johnson & Johnson's 2010 recall, which differs from their classic case study of crisis response back last century. And then the last one was Al Gore's tryst. Those topped our survey responses as the top PR disasters of 2010. So no one wants to hear all about the bad news all the time. So let's throw in a couple of tips here. I'm a service journalist from way back. So what are your thoughts? Our audience is comprised of PR, corporate communications folks, IR folks, some advertising folks, and a lot of corporate comm folks. What are your thoughts, your quick tips? And we don't want to give everything away in advance of our December 16th webinar, but your tips for staying out or managing crisis when bad news breaks.
Well, one of the things I think every organization needs to ask is whether you go with tried and true or shiny and new. Tried and true for me is traditionally getting a spokesperson out to talk as soon as you can once a crisis emerges. I've traditionally said that within 1 hour or less, you need to begin issuing statements. If media is on site, you need to have a news conference or certainly a statement on camera if media is standing by. And if media is not standing by, you need people to start publishing to the web and sending out email notices. So those are some of the tried and true techniques that I always suggest deploying. Many people are trying to go with shiny and new, which is using social media as their communications tool. And I don't see that as a one-size-fits-all. And one of the things I want to talk about in that teleseminar is how to decide whether your organization should stay with tried and true or whether you need to go with shiny and new. And I've also noticed that even if you go with shiny and new and add those components as part of your strategy, they're tools and they're just one more way to get the information out. But as we saw in the BP crisis, tried and true for me is having a well-trained executive who can go out and make an intelligent statement. And when you're head of a global corporation and you go out and say something like Tony Hayward said in his situation, where he said he wanted his life back, that is completely unacceptable. And part of what I've also seen, in addition to some of the early things that I've seen in your survey, is a recent survey that I did with IABC, the International Association of Business Communicators, which really shows that communicators on the whole are not opportunistic when a crisis happens to use that as leverage to reevaluate their crisis strategy and to go back to some of the basics such as media training their executives. And so one of the things I want to talk about in that December 16th teleseminar is how to be opportunistic and why to be opportunistic. In that survey, we saw that 72% of the respondents said that they're very comfortable talking with their executives about a crisis after a crisis has happened somewhere. But less than 20% of those respondents actually went into an executive's office and said, "Hey, did you see that ugly soundbite by Tony Hayward? I think we need to talk about that." If we had a crisis in our organization, regardless of whether you're in the oil business or whatever else, but just to ask, if we had a crisis in our organization, would our spokespeople be better or worse than Tony Hayward? So being opportunistic is one of the things I think we need to talk about because it applies to all of these 10 crises that we're going to look at as case studies. Each one of those presents an opportunity for you to get the budget that you need, or the time that you need, or the buy-in that you need for whatever communications platforms you want to use, Brian.
Well, a lot of tips, a lot covered there, Jared. I didn't actually expect you were going to go that deep for us today, and I'm very, yeah, you're a giver, and I appreciate it. You're going to give more on December 16th in our webinar. It's a CommPro Presents, the Comm Academy webinar with you, the top 10 PR disasters of 2010, and how to stay off the list in 2011. So looking forward to it, and thank you so much for your time today.
All right, talk with all of you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.